Hey guys, I'm Cyborg Sheep, and welcome to the Weekend Post. In this video, we are going to be doing some more city skylines. Between this video and last video, I had a little bit of a sequence of planning that I went through that I found pretty interesting, and I think you guys might find it interesting too. So let's get into it. So, as you guys may or may not know, in this game, there is this little tab right here called Unique Buildings. This is where it all started. As you can see here, there's all sorts of different tabs you have, and there's different ones that are blacked out, and you unlock these based on certain things that you do in the game. So, like, take for example, I don't know, the Grand Mall, for example. You have to construct the airport in order to unlock this building. Or take, for example, the Observatory. 1,000 abandoned buildings in the city, which currently I have 71. Which, I'll get into that a little bit later. I have a little bit of a list here of a bunch of things that I've wanted to put into the city that most of which exist, but some of which I'm not sure exist. But anyways, let's just go through them here. So, most of these are going to end up being unique buildings because they don't exist as anything else in the game. So, starting off here, we have the museum. So that I have right here, the Modern Art Museum. So there we go. Next we have the aquarium, which I do not have yet, but it says 5,000 children in elementary schools. That's relatively easy to overcome. I can just dump some more elementary schools in some areas. Let's see, an amusement park. That may be one of the things that doesn't exist in the game at all. Yeah, so, no, it doesn't exist. I'm just checking around here, and I don't think it's in any others unless it's in here. I mean, technically there's this Bouncy Castle Park, which is a little maybe, but not much. Next, we have a cathedral. Cathedral of Plentitude, maybe? Not sure. Construct 30 different city service buildings, which you can see we're actually pretty close to, and we might unlock through having put in the other elementary schools. Next, we have the theater, which I think I have. Yes, Theater of Wonders. Okay, next we have the convention center, which I actually already have installed. So if we can see over here, Expo Center, pretty much, yeah, it's basically the same thing. Next we have a Waterfront Park, which is actually not anything in particular, but I do have an idea on how to build one. I could see if I can find like some sort of like area that's kind of nice for building on the water. And in fact, probably along here, the way this is sort of going, I might consider just putting it in along here as like a pavement path. So yeah, that will work out pretty good. Rounding off the list, we have statues, which I actually just realized and found. So there's Statue of Industry there. There's monuments, of course, which I'm not sure exactly what that is, but it sounds like it might be some sort of statues of some sort, so maybe. And finally, a water park, which I also do not see anywhere, and much like the amusement park, nothing exists in the game to satisfy that. But that concludes the list. However, another building that's in here is the Posh Mall. Now, I've mentioned this before, and this thing is crazy. This mall is, let's just say, it's going to be so difficult to get this unlocked that it's basically not even worth going for, at least for me. What it says to unlock it is all tax rates at most 4%, which, getting into tax rates in this game is complicated to say the least. So if we go over here to the budget and we go over to taxes, you can see, well, we can just like put it down to 4%, but when you put it down to 4%, and in fact I can show you here just for a real quick second. Yeah, so there you see, we are getting ridiculously negative. So that's not going to be an option for me. Negative 40,000, dear God. Okay, yeah, that is really not happening. In light of that issue, there has to be a way to solve it, because there needs to be a way to unlock it. I theorized that my income are these things. So if I have more of them, that means more of them at 4% will be equal to less of them at 10%. That math is sort of complicated, but it works out in a way. Then we get into expansion. Getting into expansion, this was what I started with. I initially thought that low density residential zone and maybe high density residential zone would have been all that would have been required, because it just made sense to me that industrial and commercial didn't really matter as much to need expansion. And in fact, I had intended not to have any of these like commercial zones in this area at all. Basically for the roads, it's basically the usual affair. I have the roundabout right here. I sort of roads off to sort of a square shaped somewhat areas with connecting roads in the centers. Electricity in my favorite form, going with massive redundancy all over the place. For waste, I had no intent of putting much of anything in, because it's probably going to be served by this, and in retrospect that was actually probably a bad idea, because, well, it backed up here with freaking there was just a huge lineup of garbage trucks going over to this area. That was hilarious. It's worthy of note here that all of the city service buildings were in before any zoning was put in. That way I had total freedom to do basically whatever I wanted. As you can see, I put a nice little hospital there. Fire, we got that good with fire stations. And so yeah, that's good. And then police, also relatively straightforward. Education, I have an elementary school right here. I have high school right there, and then we come to transportation. This is one of the things where between this video and last video I realized I don't need any buses. I can just do it all with metro stations. And you can see here, so I spaced it out such that I figured, okay, well, you know, sort of walking distance, what's gonna be the easiest to get to. Now we get into the issues that I ran into. It's really janky with the electrical at the beginning, because I really didn't want to have to run it all the way to where the houses were being built, because then it would be taking up space where other houses could be built, and it was just a mess. So anyways, I had to kind of do it jank style and run it in between the metro stations, and thankfully I did have this channel cut, because occasionally it'll put it beside other city service buildings that don't themselves have electrical, but I did it in such a way so that if they put it beside the metro stations, they themselves will be energized, and therefore the houses near them would be energized too. And eventually that sorted itself out. The basic gist of why this didn't work is because homes will be starting to be put in, but the area will get to a certain point where there isn't enough jobs to sustain enough people that actually want to build homes, so the demand for housing will just fall right to the floor, and then basically you won't be getting any more houses built in here. So sort of as a last minute decision, I made it a point to put in, and actually it's kind of a good thing, because I figured, oh yeah, you won't want houses by a thing, so I just left those blank. But then I realized, oh yeah, commercial zone would have no problem being there, and I also decided to put some of this high density commercial zone on the outside right here. And again, this was kind of a last minute decision right here. I put in this industrial zone because that was another one of the things. I suppose what I could have done, taken this office zone and put that in as the areas, because technically I already had commercial zone, but I figured I'd just do this because it's just, well, it wasn't easier, but it was more straightforward to do than because I wanted the zoning to be in equal proportions somewhat, so I decided I'd do this over here instead of doing that. The one other problem I could think of is that when this was filling up, it was going way negative, which you're gonna notice that's a bit of a trend, because when I did it here, it went way negative, and then it came back up, and then again when I did it here, it was just going negative like non-stop. So I've realized now that that's just sort of something that comes with expansion of this sort. So anyways, that basically concludes that. So let's move on to the next area. So you're going to notice that in this zone, pretty much built on the same principles as the other zone, with the one thing being that things have been changed to address the issues that I ran into, or at least attempt to, in the last other zone I had over there. First major difference is the highway connection. It's basically mostly the same to what I would usually do, but I had this sort of short section going through the center here, connecting all the three roundabouts to each other, and I knew this one in particular right here was going to be a huge problem, and you can see it's awful. And I think the heart of the problem, though it's really actually not looking like it's too big of an issue? Not too sure about that. The whole idea for this wonky design with this one in particular was to make sure that this does not back up anything to do with the highway, which it might be doing anyways, so I guess you're kind of screwed regardless of what you do. I could have sworn that this could have worked a lot worse, but it actually worked on this side in particular not too bad. The one place where it was a real issue and I had to go through a few iterations to get it actually working properly was this side right here. So the other major difference is that I tried to make the proportions of residential, industrial, and commercial a little bit more balanced than this other zone, because of the fact that I realized that with this zone it doesn't really work. So I did that here, and as you can see, it's a little bit more balanced in this zone than it is over there, so in theory it works a little bit better. But as you can see, it's not working. The minute I started putting all the zoning in to right now, this area and basically the entire city has been nothing but just totally non-functional. And it's this problem right here. Not enough buyers for products, which would indicate that people aren't buying enough at commercial buildings, and therefore commercial buildings aren't buying enough from industrial buildings, and therefore they're all getting abandoned and being angry and whatnot. So yeah, basically at this point, the configuration is a complete cluster, and everything is like totally in total dismay. Like, there's abandoned buildings as far as the eye can see, and it's a fruitless venture trying to get rid of them all because they just pop back up. I have some thoughts about what I'm going to maybe do, but I don't know. I'll have to try in between now and then to see what I can do to solve the problem. But I think for now, that's gonna pretty much wrap it up. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this explanation of trials and tribulations phase that I've been going through with trying to get the game maybe somewhat halfway completed, or at least to a point that would be a little bit interesting to record. Hit that like button if you liked it, or hit the dislike button. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you dudes in the next video.